Good news, everyone! Tonight, Trans History Illustrated. Bigots get bent, out of shape, a new PAC claps back, and more. Good news starts right now. First up, an article from Trans-Media. Drawn to History, 10 Trans Trailblazers Who Changed the World. Now, you may recognize some of these faces from our own series, Trans People in History, but now they're illustrated, which could help spread their message to new audiences who just don't really have much interest in history, but might appreciate a comic book approach. And as a person who runs a Comic-Con, I can certainly appreciate that perspective. Now, this comes to us from Trans-Media that you may have seen floating around the interwebs from time to time. Let's dive in. 10 trans trailblazers throughout history, from the first to testify before Congress to Stonewall. Throughout history, trans individuals have made remarkable contributions to society while facing immense challenges and discrimination. You can say that again. These 10 trailblazers broke barriers, challenged norms, and paved the way for future generations to come. Their stories deserve recognition not just during Pride Month, but as an integral part of our shared human history. Efforts to erase stories like these through book bans, curriculum censorship, and anti-trans legislation may try to silence the past, but they will never silence us. First up, Frances Thompson, 1840-ish to 1876. Frances was the first trans person to testify before Congress. She was born into slavery in 1840, and after the Civil War, lived as a woman in Memphis, Tennessee, where she worked as a seamstress and domestic laborer. Thompson was also one of the first African-American women to speak out about sexual assault by white men, testifying about violence during Reconstruction. Her testimony helped document the systematic violence against newly freed Black Americans, making her a pioneer in both civil rights and trans history. Thompson's intersectional identity as a Black transgender woman placed her at the crossroads of multiple forms of oppression, yet she used her voice to advocate for justice and human dignity. You can learn more about her in our segment, Trans People in History, because we do go into greater depth about that. And her story is quite fascinating. Dr. Alan Hart, 1890 to 1962. That's a pretty cool image of him, I must say. You may recall from our history segment on him that he pioneered the use of x-rays to help treat tuberculosis. So an x-ray of a person's lung area, super fitting for him. Dr. Alan Hart was a groundbreaking physician, radiologist, and novelist who became one of the first trans men to undergo gender-affirming surgery in the United States. Which is true. He's, as far as we can tell, the first to undergo gender-affirming surgery as a man. But it gets complicated. It gets complicated. Born in Kansas, Hart struggled with his gender identity from childhood. Point of order, he did not. He understood his gender identity. He struggled with people in society telling him he was someone other than who he knew himself to be, like many of us. But details. He found no medical understanding or support. In 1917, he underwent a hysterectomy performed by Dr. J. Allen Gilbert in Portland, Oregon, a revolutionary procedure for its time. Hart went on to earn his medical degree and become a prominent tuberculosis researcher, helping develop mobile X-ray screening programs that saved countless lives. His dual legacy as both a medical pioneer and transgender trailblazer paved the way for future generations and gender nonconforming medical professionals. Hart published several novels and maintained a successful medical practice while living openly as a man, proving that transgender people could lead fulfilling, productive lives that literally save thousands upon thousands of lives. But details. Carolyn Cassie, born 1954, still alive. She is well known as an actress, model, known for her beauty, you might say. Carolyn Cassie, also known as Tula, appeared in the 1981 James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only, as an extra. When she was outed as a transgender person by the tabloid News of the World in 1981, it marked a pivotal moment in trans visibility. Rather than retreating from public life, Cassie chose to fight back with dignity and openness. She became the first transgender model to appear in Playboy magazine, using her platform to educate the public about transgender experiences. Cassie wrote her autobiography, My Story, becoming one of the first trans women to tell her story in her own words. Her legal battles for recognition and marriage rights helped establish important precedents for transgender civil rights. Throughout decades of public scrutiny, Cassie maintains her grace and is still an advocate for transgender acceptance and understanding. And you can learn more about her in our Trans People in History series. Weiwa, 1849 through 1896. Weiwa was born around 1849 in New Mexico as a member of the Zuni people. In Zuni culture, Weiwa was recognized as Ilhamana, a traditional third-gender role combining both masculine and feminine qualities. Standing over 6 feet tall, Weiwa was renowned for pottery, weaving, and other traditional crafts. During a visit to Washington, D.C. in 1886, Weiwa met President Grover Cleveland and was generally mistaken for a cisgender woman. Weiwa served as a cultural ambassador, participating in anthropological studies and helping preserve Zuni traditions during a time of intense cultural pressure from the U.S. government. One anthropologist described Weiwa as the strongest character and most intelligent of the Zuni tribe. Weiwa's life demonstrates how many indigenous cultures traditionally recognized and honored gender diversity long before modern Western concepts of transgender identity emerged. Lucy Hicks Anderson, 1886 through 1954. Born in Waddy, Kentucky in 1886, Lucy Hicks Anderson insisted on wearing dresses to school from childhood. When her concerned mother took her to a doctor, he suggested allowing the child to live as female. Anderson moved to California, where she built a successful life as a businesswoman and socialite. She married twice, first to Clarence Hicks in 1920 and later to Reuben Anderson in 1944. Her legal battles over her marriages brought national attention to transgender rights decades before the modern movement. When prosecuted for perjury regarding her legal sex, she was sentenced to probation and forced to wear masculine clothing. Anderson's courage in living authentically and fighting for legal recognition established important precedents for transgender civil rights. The Handbook of LGBT Elders calls Anderson, quote, one of the earliest documented cases of an African American transgender person. Michael Dillon, 1915 through 1962. Another medical pioneer, Michael Dillon was a British doctor, author, Buddhist monk, and the first known transgender man to undergo phalloplasty. Born into an aristocratic family, Dillon struggled with his identity from childhood. Once again, it was the other people push it, whatever. You will all understand. We don't actually struggle with our gender identity. We know who we are. It's the interface between who we are and who society keeps trying to tell us to be. It's everyone else who is confused because there's this difficulty in just listening to people when they tell you who they are. We're working on it, folks. But even a trans media company still struggles with this language, so please don't feel bad if you get confused. The language is intended to confuse, and we're trying to clarify it, to cut through the nonsense coming from outside. Anyhow, Dylan later wrote about his despair at being perceived as female. He began hormone therapy in the 1940s and underwent pioneering gender-affirming surgeries with plastic surgeon Harold Gillies. Dylan earned his medical degree from Trinity College, Dublin, and later helped perform Britain's first male-to-female surgery on Roberta Cowell in 1951. His book, Self, A Study in Ethics and Endocrinology, was one of the first academic works on transgender identity. Later in life, Dylan became a Buddhist monk in India, finding spiritual peace after his medical and social transition. His courage in pursuing both medical transitions and professional success opened doors for future generations of transgender men. Marsha P. Johnson, 1945 to 1992. As you know, Marsha P. Johnson is one of my favorite figures in trans history, and the fact that she put flowers in her hair every chance she got, her iconic look, is the inspiration for why I have flowers on so many of my hats. She's just delightful. Marsha P. Johnson was a central figure in the 1969 Stonewall Uprising that launched the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. Born in New Jersey, Johnson moved to New York City as a teenager and became a prominent figure in Greenwich Village's gay community. Known for her colorful personality, elaborate outfits, and flowers in her hair, Johnson was a drag performer and sex worker who looked out for vulnerable GSM youth. On the night of June 28, 1969, Johnson was among those who fought back against police harassment at the Stonewall Inn. She co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, STAR, with Sylvia Rivera, providing housing and support for homeless LGBTQ+ youth. Johnson's activism extended beyond Stonewall as she participated in AIDS activism with ACT UP and continued advocating for marginalized community members until her death in 1992. Her legacy reminds us that trans women of color have always been at the forefront of the entire LGBTQ+ liberation movement. Renee Richards, born 1934. Dr. Renee Richards broke barriers in both medicine and professional sports. Before her transition, she was a successful ophthalmologist and amateur tennis player. After transitioning in the mid-1970s, Richards faced discrimination when she attempted to compete in women's professional tennis tournaments. The United States Tennis Association initially barred her from competition, leading to a landmark 1977 court case that ruled in her favor. To be precise, the court ruled that since Renee had changed her sex surgically, medically, hormonally, she was not just a woman, but legally a female. And that precedent is still on the books for reference. Richards' legal victory established an important precedent for transgender athletes' participation in sports. She competed in the women's professional tennis circuit and later coached Martina Navratilova to 2 Wimbledon titles. Beyond sports, Richards continued practicing medicine and wrote her autobiography, Second Serve, bringing transgender experiences to mainstream audiences. Her courage in fighting for equal treatment in professional sports opened doors for future transgender athletes while demonstrating that transgender people could excel in any field. And often do, because we tend to be very driven individuals, as evidenced by the fact we continue to still be alive. You know, Christine Jorgensen. You may be familiar with this name, 1926 to 1989. Christine Jorgensen became internationally famous in 1952 when she traveled to Denmark for gender-affirming surgery, making headlines as one of the first Americans to undergo such procedures. Born a dead name in the Bronx, she translash. You do some good work. Your terminology is a little bit outdated here and there. You use the bigots language here and there. But you really should know better than to dead name a person, even if that person was public about their dead name at one point. It's still not fucking cool. My goodness. She served in the U.S. Army before seeking medical treatment in Europe. The New York Daily News broke her story with the headline, "Ex-GI becomes blonde beauty," thrusting her into the spotlight. Rather than hiding from publicity, Jorgensen embraced her role as an educator and spokesperson. She toured extensively, giving lectures about transgender experiences to packed auditoriums across America. Jorgensen appeared on television shows, wrote her autobiography, and worked as a nightclub performer. Her grace under intense media scrutiny and her willingness to educate the public helped humanize transgender people for mainstream America. Jorgensen's courage in living openly during an extremely hostile time period paved the way for greater transgender visibility and acceptance. And there's an interesting note about this, because while we have covered Christine Jorgensen before and the fact that she won Woman of the Year back in the 1950s, and here we have all these extreme regressives who say they want to go back to the 50s, but Christine was respected in the 50s. So which part of the 50s do they want to go back to? I think you know the answer, but they won't say it. Last on this list, Coccinelle, which is French for ladybug. She lived from 1931 through 2006, and Coccinelle became Europe's first widely known transgender celebrity. Well, one of. We have featured a few who were very big much earlier, but details. She rose to fame in the 1950s as a cabaret performer in Paris's Le Carrousel nightclub, captivating audiences with her beauty, talent, and charisma. Coccinelle underwent gender-affirming surgery in Casablanca in 1958, making headlines across Europe. Her success in entertainment challenged stereotypes about transgender people and proved we could achieve mainstream acceptance. She appeared in films, recorded albums, and maintained a successful performing career for decades. In 1960, she legally married journalist Francis Bonnet in a ceremony that attracted international media attention, making her one of the first trans women to achieve legal marriage recognition in Europe. If you'd like to learn more about these people and other individuals beyond what's been featured on this channel, there are references and resources available in the TransPositions Discord. Next up, Dove advertisement featuring a trans woman using intensive repair conditioner sends bigots spiraling. This is from Pink News. So we've got this commercial, and there's a trans woman in the commercial. It's a 6-second commercial. But how dare trans women have hair? You're erasing women by having hair as a woman, because you're a woman who also has hair. Am I understanding this outrage correctly? Right-wingers are up in arms over a hair care advert that featured a trans woman. 1 Million Moms, the hate group with like one mom in a basement, which is now a division of the American Family Foundation Incorporated, claims to fight against indecency. Like being a Republican publicly? Oh, no. You mean people existing in public as themselves. You know, like gay people and brown people. Indecency, you know. Has accused personal care brand Dove of, quote, pushing a sinful lifestyle onto viewers and glamorizing the transgender lifestyle choice. 1 million moms. You know, all three of you, I suppose, now that you're a corporate subsidy, we don't need a brand to glamorize us. We're already pretty fucking glamorous. Thanks for noticing, though. The 6-second advert, which featured the tagline, "The Dove You Love, Reimagine," showed the trans model playing with her hair to highlight the before and after effects of using Dove's intensive repair products. A spokesperson for 1 Million Moms urged, quote, Dove to cancel woke commercials immediately, misgendered the model, and criticized the company for portraying perverted behavior. Folks, is it perverted to have hair? I mean, we're mammals. Most of us just kind of have hair. It's okay. They describe the inclusion of trans women in adverts as extremely dangerous. We're dangerous for existing. We're dangerous for having hair. We're dangerous for wanting to take care of our hair that we naturally have. It sounds like they just hate women. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading what they plainly wrote on the page with their own words. You know. Right-wing social media account Libs of TikTok, writing on Twitter, jumped on the bandwagon to say this is a real commercial by Dove, another woke company trying to erase women, by featuring a woman in an ad. Okay, Chaya. Comments under the post, which has been viewed more than 720,000 times, include one person saying, time to boycott Dove, they clearly hate women. Yes, making products for women because they hate women. I mean, you can make an argument that being a capitalistic organization trying to sell products to women by exploiting insecurities about the beauty standards that they themselves helped enact could be taken to mean they hate women. But I don't think that's quite what they mean here. Perhaps. And then the bigots flip out and go nuts. Another wrote, wow, now I have to get rid of my lovely Dove soap for non-woke product. How do you find non-woke soap? I mean, is it just like pig shit? Do you just go out to the farm, enter the barn, move the feeding trough, and just grab a big old turd of pig shit? And just wash your face with that, because it's the closest you can get to a non-woke product. Go for it. Knock yourselves out. It'll be fun. Dove also used a trans model for a Mother's Day commercial in 2017 and in the UK in 2021. Then Conservative MP Jackie Doyle-Price vowed to never buy their chocolate again, or their brand again, after the company voiced support for trans Olympic trailblazer Laurel Hubbard. Other brands have also faced right-wing wrath in the US. Influencer Dylan Mulvaney faced a wave of abuse after she collaborated with Bud Light, and the beer brand faced threats of a boycott, which was pretty hilarious if you recall, but that's old news at this point. With some people seen smashing bottles on supermarket shelves, musician Kid Rock even made a video of himself shooting cans, which was pretty hilarious. So they're all bent out of shape over another commercial, and we love to see it because A, it's amusing as hell, and B, they're telling on themselves. They're running red flags up their flagpole as hard as they can so everyone can see exactly what kind of person they are. And most of all, they bring more attention to these brands that are featuring diverse people, showing that other kinds of people exist. If the 1 million moms and people had their way, there would never be women on television at all. You might see an ankle. You'd have to sell soap and hair conditioner and stuff by featuring men, I suppose, because anything else is perversion and indecent. Like, where is the line, and how is it not arbitrary? Or can people exist in this free country? You tell me. 1 million moms. Incorporated. Next up, from The Advocate, a new trans rights political action committee looks to rebuild the political playbook with these high-profile endorsements. With trans rights under siege, a new political action committee is stepping up to support lawmakers who refuse to back down. The Christopher Street Project, a new political group focusing on building support for trans rights within the Democratic Party, has announced its first slate of congressional endorsements as it moves to equip candidates with political and messaging strategies ahead of the 2026 midterms and the 2028 presidential election. Named after the New York City street where the 1969 Stonewall Uprising began, and founded in the wake of the 2024 election cycle that saw Republicans spend more than $200 million attacking transgender Americans, the Christopher Street Project is endorsing 16 Democratic lawmakers. The slate includes prominent GSM members, parents of trans children, relatives of transgender people, and high-profile allies such as Representatives Sarah McBride, Dyla Ramirez, Sarah Jacobs, Dina Titus, Catherine Clark, Maxwell Alejandro Frost, Val Hoyle, Mark Takano, Becca Balint, Julie Johnson, Mark Pocan, Pramila Jayapal, Ayanna Presley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamie Raskin, and Melanie Stansbury. Quote, "Our mission is to build support for the trans community within the Democratic Party and take back the party as one that values people over power," Tyler Hack, the group's 20-year-old founder, told The Advocate in an exclusive interview. Quote, "We understand we need to build the playbook for how we win on trans issues over the next decade." Hack, who is a trans non-binary person using they-them pronouns, said the Christopher Street Project was born from frustration after the 2024 elections when some Democrats began to distance themselves from trans issues, fearing electoral backlash. Hack noted that since November, they had met with lawmakers who were at a loss for how to counter Republican attacks effectively. Here's a tip, Democrats. You say no. You just say no. You look at the ad, you look it right in the face, you identify, explicitly call out the messaging that they're communicating, and then you say no. We reject that because we as a party believe that all humans deserve human rights, period. It's super easy, barely an inconvenience. But do go on. Quote, "For all the thousands of political action committees in Washington, there wasn't one dedicated specifically to trans people," Hack said. "It was really important for us to build up that playbook in a time when Democratic leaders were doing what they thought was right." Were they? But were not always given guidance about how to go about that. Hack's vision is clear. Democrats must learn how to respond to Republican attacks and misinformation without abandoning core values. Or people. In 2024, Hack said, the party failed by attempting to deflect or move past attacks rather than confronting them head on. What did I just say? Republicans, particularly the Trump campaign, bombarded Vice President Kamala Harris for her support of the trans community, which was pretty lukewarm, but whatever. In several attack ads, it claimed, Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is coming for you, is for you. Is definitely not coming for your children either. No, for you. Unless you're brown or a woman or a Democrat, or a veteran, or, you know what, let's just go on. After the Trump campaign bashed Harris for having expressed support for providing essential gender-affirming care to people in federal custody, as required to do by law, Republicans painted her views as extreme. It seems complying with the law is an extreme view for the modern Republican Party. Weird. Ads attacked her for supporting taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries for prisoners, even as Trump initiated that policy during his first administration. However, Democrats did not fight back and dismissed the line of attack. Quote, "We never, as a political party or as candidates, won an argument by simply saying, 'Let's move on to the next question.' That's just not how the American electorate thinks," Hack said. "People don't respond to that because it's clear the leaders are being evasive." Instead, Hack believes Democrats must call out the realities behind Republican proposals. They point to the so-called Protecting Women and Girls in Sports Act, which isn't an act, it's an executive order, but details in law can sometimes be important, but details. Warning it would also lead to invasive policies like genital inspections for girls as young as 4 years old. Hack added, "There's no swing voter who wants genital inspections for girls as young as 4. No, not a swing voter. Just the ones with the red hats on." Hack argued that the Republican focus on transgender athletes is both a distraction and a moral failing, designed to exploit a tiny population for political gain. Literally how scapegoating works. That's what it is, that's what it's for. And when Republicans can play up a moral panic, they tend to do better in elections. See the Reagan era for examples. Quote, "Trans female athletes in the NCAA, we're talking about fewer than 10 people," Hack said. "It's really closer to 5. These are actual human beings, and they have real consequences when they become political targets." Despite GOP attacks, Hack said Democrats can win if they frame trans rights as part of a broader fight against government overreach and cruelty. Become the party of small government, as they kind of always have been. Democrats have always kind of sucked at countering Republican lies. Quote, "There's no way to discriminate against transgender Americans without a gross government overreach on all people," Hack said. "We need to reach people where they're at, emphasize what these bills actually do." Hack stressed that the Christopher Street Project's goal isn't to demand that every candidate make trans rights their top issue in competitive districts. Though maybe they should. No. Quote, "Most people are concerned about the cost of living, about their health care," Hack said. "But when millions of dollars are attacking you need to have a response. You can't just immediately pivot because the electorate doesn't respond to that." The lawmakers on the Christopher Street Project's initial slate, Hack said, have consistently shown up for the trans community even when it wasn't politically convenient. Quote, "These are people who have been standing up for the trans community time and time again, regardless of when it's popular or when pundits are telling them to stop speaking about it," Hack said. "They show up in their districts and do the work." He pointed to Titus of Nevada as an example of a lawmaker who's defended trans rights in a competitive district and successfully countered Republican narratives. Quote, "She's been unwavering in her support of the transgender community," Hack said. "She's been a longtime supporter of the Trans Bill of Rights and is showing what it looks like to be a Democratic member who stands up for trans people and wins in the tough races." If you enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe. Transpositions Weekly is the first and only weekly trans news show in the universe, and we need your help to keep this show going. Contribute at patreon.com/thetranspositions and spread the word all over social media to let people know we're here, and tell us what stories matter to you by joining the community on Discord. Discord, of course, is where the memes live, and our meme of the week was posted by Bumblebee. And if you want to join our polycule of trans girls and friends allies, folks who are curious, well, join the Discord. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.